So oral arguments happen today. What happens next? What will you be watching for?
So you never know when the Supreme Court decision will fall. Most people wait around in June or refreshing the button for on decision days. But between now and then, one of our really important tasks is to make sure that people know about this case. Many people haven't been following it in part because it came up fast and we didn't expect the court to take it this term. I want to make sure that people understand what is at stake, understand the cost of these abortion bans, and are watching and waiting and ready to react no matter the Supreme Court decision.
Now, I know we can't read the tea leaves, but let's go through the various scenarios. Obviously, some cases are dismissed on standing, and we heard some speculation that another abortion case around mifepristone might be dismissed on standing. We're still waiting on
Yeah.
that. Then there's the situation where the court rules in favor of Idaho. So let's start there. If the court rules in favor of the state of Idaho, what does that mean for the people of Idaho? And part two, what does that mean for people outside of Idaho?
Well, so if the court rules in favor of Idaho, it will mean that Idaho's extreme abortion ban is allowed to stand. I hope that's not the case. There may be a narrow question around how to interpret its extreme abortion ban. Today, the Idaho solicitor was suggesting that Idaho's abortion ban would meet all of the conditions that the federal government, that the Solicitor General was naming were of concern. I'm not sure that's actually right. He sort of went back and forth about how true that would be in practice, but I imagine that many of us would say, okay, you said that it would cover all of these conditions that our federal emergency laws would require. We're going to hold you to it. I also just think if Idaho prevails, it will only accelerate similar copycat laws around the country. And that would be devastating. It is one thing to have 6 states in the level of crisis that we have right now, but to expand that where you're having to, again, helicopter people out of the state of Idaho right now to make sure they get emergency care. There's no question that in some cases, abortion is the only care that can actually save the health and life of these patients. So what's happening now in Idaho is they're literally being airlifted out. That is not care at all.
And so if in June or whenever the decision comes down, the court rules against Idaho, what happens then for people in Idaho and their access to reproductive care?
It's my deep hope that that is what the court will find. And if that happens, then Idaho's extreme ban will not be allowed to go into effect. I don't think that will, in the matter for the people of Idaho. I do think anti-abortion extremists there and in so many places are determined to end abortion access. So I imagine that we will again be fighting back against an abortion ban, but the court will have articulated limits. And the court will have said and reminded not just Idaho, but states around the country that the long-standing federal law that requires emergency abortion care, that requires emergency medical care of all sorts, preempts these extreme state laws.
How, and again, this is more tea leaf reading, but how do you think this case will affect, if at all, the election in November? Will this galvanize voters in any way, do you think?
Well, it is just another reminder that this case and the mifepristone case and the states around the country that are racing to ban abortion, this is a part of a broader agenda. And I do believe people are paying attention. They understand that this isn't some isolated incident or just a one-off. I think no matter the court's outcome, frankly, people are aware that we are within an inch in any given year of having more and more devastating outcomes. That's a direct result of the Supreme Court's decision just 2 years ago. And it is deeply unpopular. It is not what people in this country are calling for. So I do think it will play into the election.
Any final thoughts on what you observed today, either inside the courtroom, outside the courtroom? I saw some photos of, as usual, people with posters and protesting, all the different sides. Final thoughts from your observations
Well,
today.
my final thought is when I walked outside the courtroom, what I actually saw was joy and optimism. I saw perseverance. I saw activists who were very clear that in their minds, it was their duty to keep people safe and they would fight for abortion access always. That was a beautiful thing to see.